Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Fantasy 420, where today we will be continuing our baseball position primers and moving on to second base. Anyway, so we're going to continue using the fantasypros.com aggregate rankings to get a base idea of which round and platform, because I don't know which platform you're going to be using, but today I'm probably going to be talking a lot of ownership percentages because there's a lot of good players with low ownership percentages you can buy into, and for that I'll be primarily using Yahoo, but it'll mostly be just a baseline of you can pick these people up or check the free agency wire, sort of thing. So moving on, the first player we're going to mention today is Jose Altuve. I would definitely buy into him at player number 13. He was the consensus number 2 player overall last year. Obviously, we with Betts' ascension and Mike Trout, I don't expect him to reach that at very many universes. However, he could, but injuries hurt him last year a lot, and the championship probably hangover, and I would just buy into him this year. End of the first round, top of the second round is pretty good value for a player who's probably going to hit his 330 batting average, 20 plus home runs, 30 plus stolen bases benchmark, hitting at the top of the order on one of the best rosters in the league. And I still think they're the class of the American League West, and they're going to be trying to get a World Series this year. So definitely would buy into him. Ozzy Albies, I wanted to mention because I'm not really sure. He's probably one of the most polarizing fantasy players right now. He's projected at 46, and I do expect the Braves to be in contention in that crazy division with 4 teams vying for that playoff spot out of the division automatically, of course. But he had a top 10 first half and an absolutely horrendous second half, so people don't know what is going to happen with him. If he was batting leadoff like he was at the start of last year, I think it'd be easier to buy into him. If he's batting sixth, like a lot of people are projecting, and like he was in the second half, it's going to be a little bit iffy. The age, the potential, and like I said, the good roster lead to 46 being a good buy, but there's a lot of question marks as well. So that one I'm going to leave up to you. So 2 people back to back in rankings who I definitely would buy. Adalberto Mondesi for Kansas City. He is ranked around 52. He played around 75 games last year, so obviously a very short season, but if you prorate his numbers out towards a whole season, he would steal at least 50 bags, which is obviously an elite number and can win you a category by itself. And he's going to hit around 25 to 30 home runs. Once again, he's going to hit probably first or second in a lineup, so that obviously gives him more at bats. That's good. And I would check my platform because he's going a lot later in some of the other sites, around 70 or so. So I would definitely reach to buy him even around 50. I might even go even lower and get him. He's only 23, and those numbers are kind of the 50 stolen bases and the 25 home runs are on the low end projections. So I would definitely grab him if I was sold on him. And also Gleyber Torres, obviously for the Yankees. He's been a huge talent prospect for a great team for a really long time. Um, he's locked into that role. He has huge potential, and he's gonna hit, I would say, at least 30 home runs, probably 100 RBIs, and he hit 271 last year, but that should rise. He was 21 last year, and you would think with experience and growth he would eclipse those numbers. So I would really buy into Gleyber Torres at that spot. The only thing that worries me is he's gonna project to hit around 7th in the lineup, but I would still do it. of talents there, and I definitely believe. So the next name I will go into is Scooter Gennett for the Reds. I've mentioned them with Joey Votto. I think they're going to be, even if they're not going to win or even be in contention for the division, they're going to play like they are because they made a big trade to get Matt Kemp and Puig and Wood from the Dodgers, and they're pushing their young players forward into the lineup in order to just prove to their fan base that they're going to be serious in the future and maximize the end of Joey Votto's career there. So I would definitely buy into him. He is a proven 300 hitter, which a lot of these guys aren't. It's him and Altuve so far that have proven they can hit 300 through a whole season. And he's also hits 92 RBIs last year and 23 home runs, so he's just good all across the board. And like I said, if you expect the Reds to be better, you expect those numbers to be a little bit better, maybe even a lot better, and he'll produce way higher than 81. So I would buy into him. Maybe the next two names I'm buying into maybe more than anyone in this list. I love all of the guys beforehand, but Max Muncy at 127 to me is pretty crazy value. People seem hesitant because, he's only done it for one season and it was a breakout. But I kind of mentioned that I think the Dodgers have lost talent this offseason, especially in the hitting end. So he's going to be expected to reproduce or try to reproduce those numbers. At 35 home runs in just 137 games, I would probably project him to maybe lead second base in home runs, if not behind Jose Ramirez. But Jose had a pretty magical season, even as an Indians fan last year. So it would not surprise me at all if Muncy led second baseman in home runs. He might even be the favorite, in my opinion. He's going to have to produce at number 5. The Dodgers are, I think they won't get as far in the playoffs this year, but I do project them to win that division. And even if they do fall a little bit, I still project Muncy to, like I said, have to produce at the 5 spot in that order. So I would definitely buy into him. And he should not be 65% owned. This guy should be above 90% owned. That's crazy. You should look to pick him up if he wasn't drafted in your league. Next, I'll move on to Joey Wendell. He is the second baseman for Tampa Bay. They are probably the worst team in the league moving forward, so he will be hitting third for a really bad team, so he'll be producing. He only played in 139 games last year, but the batting exactly 300 is obviously really good, and stealing the 16 stolen bases, so you would assume that batting third, he's expected to be a huge producer and leader on that team. Somebody's going to have to score numbers, and it's probably going to be him for a lot of that time. So I would definitely buy into him. A franchise player for a really bad team at 250 seems like a lot of value, especially in a position where you can punt and just get him really, really late. He's only 48% owned, not even owned in over half the leagues. You might not even have to draft him, so definitely would buy into him. Finally, I will end the playoff or the second base primer with somebody I also really like is Jed Lowry. I've mentioned I like Robinson Cano with his production and talent at around 90 pick position, but Jed Lowry is going around 250. And he produces a very steady baseline of around 20 home runs, around 80, 90 RBIs. And like I said, I project the Mets to be in that 4-team race going forward with the Nationals, them, the Braves. And I just think that he's looking really good going in that lineup going forward, and I would definitely buy into him if you miss out on those top guys going forward at the end of the draft. Finally, I just want to mention good job Browns getting Kareem Hunt. I think that they're looking good for a playoff team next year, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow, and we'll be going over the next fantasy baseball position. All right, guys, have a good afternoon.